look. I love it.
You know what I
I
think
love it.
looks good? I think they're doing an amazing job with Corvettes. And maybe it's just me. Maybe when you hit your mid 40s, you become mandated to like
Yeah, you're
Corvettes.
the
I
only
don't
one who
know.
likes the Corvette.
I like it.
But here,
I like it.
let me lay
I
out my
like
point.
it,
Let
and
me
I
lay out my
owned a
point.
Corvette.
Oh,
I'll
okay.
plead guilty.
All right. So the Corvette, like I look at one from like 10 years ago, I'm like, that thing looks amazing. Then I see a more recent one, and that thing looks more amazing. And they keep passing it, and every iteration is better than the one before. And they look like supercars. And I'm
They
like,
are
man,
supercars.
I guess, yeah, I guess they're supercars, but
I think they're not, but that's okay.
Well,
Okay.
what's the supercar one? It's like the ZX1,
ZR1.
ZR1.
I drove the ZR1 recently. It's fucking batshit. It's really, 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 really crazy. It's
But not
750 horsepower.
But you wouldn't
Huh?
call it like a supercar?
No, I don't think it's exclusive enough. I actually don't think it's expensive enough. I don't think a Corvette really
I thought
can be.
supercar. I'm not nearly as knowledgeable on cars as the three of you. I thought supercar just meant like real deal insane performance, like super fast, or is it like availability? Like it has to be a little more elite. Not everybody.
Yeah, so a lot of people like in the comment sections of my videos will debate this, the exact nuanced meaning of sports car, supercar, hypercar, and where exactly do you draw the lines. For me, the line is no longer really about performance because you can buy a 700 horsepower Dodge Challenger, right? 800, you can buy an 800 horsepower Dodge Challenger right now. And you can buy a 755 horsepower Corvette. I mean, you can buy insanely fast versions of sort of normal cars. And so for me, the line is drawn on exclusivity, but that's just my personal opinion.
800 horsepower Dodge Challenger is 100 grand, I think, right?
It is, yeah. Not a supercar.
Okay.
Not a supercar. Here's
Pretty
why.
exclusive.
Because if it's fucking parked, right, and you sit in it, sitting in it parked is roughly identical to sitting in a rental Dodge Challenger that costs $26,000.
You're just missing a few seats.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's
I mean,
some seats missing. It's a different color, and it comes
it's
with
a different experience.
Does it come with tires
because
and
on-
like a
on-
floor
yeah, all this
jack
extra-
for the drag strip and stuff? And it
Yeah,
comes
it
with like
comes
a
with the
pirate's
greatest shit.
chest full of things.
Yeah.
That's super.
It is. It's really cool. It's a drag racing special car. But like, here's the difference to me. And I'm sorry I'm moving around. If you're hearing it, I apologize.
You're good.
The difference to me is when I've taken a Hellcat to the racetrack, right? And then I've taken a 911 Turbo.
Is
to
the
same
Hellcat the
racetrack.
highest one?
It's the 700 horsepower one, not the 800 horsepower one.
What's that one?
The
called?
800 horsepower one is a Demon.
Thank you.
And that's the drag racing one. Those don't really go around corners. The Hellcat, where they now have with the wide body and the wider tires. So I tested that at the racetrack. It's got 315s all around, just huge tires, huge, like over a foot wide. And it's 700 horsepower and the paddle shift 8-speed. I mean, the numbers, if you write them down, say supercar, right? But it moves around a lot. The hood goes like this when you go real fast. The brakes overheat. It's kind of unstable at high speed. It's a little bouncy. And then you do the same track in the new Acura NSX or a Porsche 911 Turbo or a GT3. And these cars have a tightness about them. It's a fineness of engineering. It's not, you know what I mean? It's not the size of these sledgehammers so much as the way the edges of it are beveled perfectly. And it's a precision in engineering that there's no amount of horsepower that you can overcome a lack of that. And so that, to me, it's a level of build quality, engineering, exclusivity that defines a supercar versus just a very, very powerful muscle car or sports car.
It's fun to try to define it too, because if you did lap times, is it the
Oh, yeah.
Ariel Atom that I'm thinking of? That thing has super amazing lap times, right?
Yeah, a little more so like probably 5 or 6 years ago. The newest like huge power cars on a short racetrack, an Ariel Atom is a weapon. But on a big racetrack, a Road America, a Nürburgring, or a whatever, you've got a ZR1 with 750 horsepower or a Viper ACR with 650 and full downforce. It's the newer supercars have a top end, that is unheard of. I mean, I just had a glorious week with the McLaren 720S, And I mean, the fact that all it takes is money. I mean, it's just you show up with money, and here is a fucking missile. I mean, they say it's making like 700 horsepower. I think it's more like 8. It runs a 9-second quarter mile out of the box with seats full in it. You don't need a special crate of shit. You know, and on top of all
crate
that,
of shit is cool.
Yeah, the crate of shit is fun. My friend has a Demon and has the crate of shit for sure. He probably drives around with
if
one.
People don't
seat.
know. I feel like we haven't laid it out there. When you buy the Dodge Demon, it comes with like a pirate's chest of things, so that you like bring that with you, and it has like a floor jack, maybe new tires. Help me. What else? Do you know what's in it?
Yeah, so you get skinny tires for the front, right? Because it comes with 4 like normal tires, right? So it comes with normal front tires. So you have to get the skinnies, and then it comes with a jack and shit to change them. And then there's a box of the stuff. I think it comes with anything you need to change a tire, like a torque wrench and whatever. I think there's like an air filter or air intake delete kit. There's a thing. I don't know all the parts, but like it's a bunch of stuff. The hardware to take the passenger seat out. It's a
like
bunch
an
of
impact
shit.
wrench, a torque wrench, and I guess you air down the tires. I would guess.
Yeah, you air down the rears.
Yeah, so it has a little tire inflator. It's fun, man. I don't know.
I'm on their website right now, and just looking at all the shit you got to do to like have fun with this and the amount it costs. This is so not me.
No, look,
like I would never want to go and be like, all right, now I'm gonna fiddle fuck around with my car, and then I'm gonna do all this, and then drag it back and forth a couple times, ruin my tires, then get my little chest back out, fix it back up, go buy new tires, and head home.
I like to get to
day.
the racetrack a day early and go camping there so that I can prepare my car, but it's street legal, kind of.
Oh, no.
I tow it behind my camper.
Here's the difference. Here's the difference, right? The Dodge Demon is $100,000, right? And if you put all this crap on it or take some of the crap off, whatever you use the tools for, you can run a 9-second quarter mile with a car that does pass California smog and that has air conditioning. And my friend who owns the Demon bought it in Florida and drove it home to San Francisco. Like, it's totally drivable 800 horsepower car. It's $100,000, right? But if you want to do that without needing a crate of stuff, and having the engine in the middle instead of the front, and having a carbon tub instead of a chassis that you can rent from Hertz for $35 a day, it costs $300,000. Now you're into a McLaren. You know what I mean? Now you've got a carbon tub. And now you can run those same lap times by showing up with a fucking espresso and a cigar and saying, "Hello, boys, line them up." And that's it. You just show up and you're good to go. None of that,
like
no wrenching.
Fun.
But it costs triple.
Costs triple.
It'd be like going paintball, but every time you went, you have to like rebuild it and like go and scavenge for a CO2 tank. Like
paintball.
And on top of that, I spent a week with the McLaren, and I did everything in it. I took it for groceries. I took it to the office. I ran errands all over the city, and when you take a normal car, whether it's a Dodge Hellcat, and I don't mean to be unfair to Dodge. Credit to Sergio Marchione, who just died, unfortunately, like yesterday.
None of us are shareholders. You can say whatever the fuck you want about that.
No. Look, he greenlit an 800 horsepower car. It takes a ceron kind of executive to do that.
I feel like I could do that.
700 horsepower car.
As a matter of fact, 900. Knock yourself out, boys.
Yeah, not.
Make it a cool 1,000. We're not losing this.
When you've got cars with the engine in the middle or in the back, you have these geometries that are possible with front suspensions that allow the car to ride really well and handle really well. You can have longer control arms that come further into the center of the car because there's no engine there, right? So, and you can have big radiators up front that you could put them in any way you want because there's no engine there, right? So there's different ways of doing things. And so when you have, whether it's a Porsche or a Ferrari or a McLaren or even a Toyota MR2, a mid-engine platform is just able to ride really well in the city where roads are bumpy and then handle really well without beating you up. Whereas all AMG, M, SRT cars that are based on normal platforms, to make them handle better, it's just wider wheels, stickier tires, stiffer shocks and springs.
What does mid-engine mean?
Mid-engine literally means the engine, as opposed to being up front, would be behind the driver, but in front of the rear axle. So a Porsche 911, the engine actually partially hangs back over the rear axle, past the rear axle. So we call that rear engine. Whereas, the Ferraris, most of the Ferraris, the Lamborghinis, the engine is in the middle because it's behind the driver, but in front of the rear axle.
Okay, I
Why
didn't
have
know
0 to 60 times gotten so much better in the last whatever it is, 5-10 years?
Because of dual clutch transmissions, and because of the top performing cars having all-wheel drive, and because of turbochargers and very intelligent anti-lag programs that cars can use. I mean, the Porsches, which are crazy fast on launch, the turbo Porsches, and the McLarens, which are all. I mean, the McLaren is a rear drive vehicle, not an all-wheel drive car, and will still do 0 to 60 in under 3. And it does it with a lot of clutch slipping.
Oh, it's got to feel so good.
It's fucking fast.
It probably gives you that feeling of like, those roller coasters where it just boom, you don't go up the thing, it just explodes you out. You like feel your organs like pushing back a little bit. That's probably what it feels like to drive it.
That's what launching a Tesla feels like. If you've ever launched the Tesla 100D, that is like one of those magnetic coasters. A Porsche Turbo is like kind of like that as well. Is because it shifts. There's zero loss in torque when it shifts. It has this crazy gearbox. The Porsche has a dual clutch gearbox, which is a paddle shift gearbox, and it's rated to 3,000 launches, which is, I mean, it's a 10-second car out of the box, and you show up and you could launch it over and over and over and over and over and over and over. I once launched one of those 60 times in a row, just for fun, and I got stopped because I got bored, not because the car broke. Like, it's crazy. The McLaren, the 0 to 60 is awesome, but where it really blows your mind is 120 to 190. Then it's like, when because it's boost by gear, right? So you don't get all like 700 wheel in first and second gear. You get it by like fourth. So when you do a 3-4 upshift and it pulls harder, that is like, oh, I'm in some next level shit. It's one of those.
Oh,
what's the fastest car, or what's the fastest you ever got to in a car? And what was that?
220 I did once in a road car. Hennessy Venom GT.
I haven't even heard of
it. Yeah. Oh,
so
I don't know Hennessy's work.
So John Hennessy is this crazy Texan guy who got famous in the 90s and 2000s for putting twin turbos on Vipers and going really, really fast with them. Yeah. And he decided to build his own car that was sort of based on a Lotus Elise hub. But then he worked with a company called Penske that's known for racing as much as moving trucks. They engineer a lot of racing hardware. And they basically took a Lotus Elise and a race car called a Daytona Prototype and put those cars together. So they sort of stretched the Lotus, and then they put in a 1,300 horsepower twin turbo V8 with a manual transmission, a gearbox called a Ricardo gearbox, which is a $30,000 manual gearbox from the Ford.
So it's
GT.
like an around town car.
Actually, it's lovely to drive. It's really easy to drive because you know why? It makes like something like 500 pounds of torque at idle, and so you can literally just let the clutch out and drive it around idling, and upshift it.
That's how I drive my tractor.
It's got very long gears because you can pretty much drive it like a diesel. If you could shift up at 1,500 RPM, and actually because they lengthen the wheelbase 18 inches. It rides better. It's stiffer. It rides better than the Lotus. It was quite an interesting thing, and I got to take it on a runway, and it was Steven Tyler's personal car from Aerosmith.
Wow. What's your bang for the buck car?
Bang for the buck depends how much buck
used. All right, you've got a budget of $45,000. Buy a used car. Should be. I would buy.
It should be fun. Fun is the only requirement.
Yeah, it's a grown-up's toy.
Do you need a back seat?
No.
Okay. I would say 45,000 gets you a lot of 2009 to 2011 Porsche 911 Carrera S with a manual.
Okay.
That's where my money would go.
You know where I was guiding you toward, and what your opinion? A Lotus, a Elise, a Lanza. I don't know what my Lotus is, but
Elise is the really little one.
And
then there's an Evora, which is the slightly bigger one.
Right. And
I
they
just
can be
have
had in
a
that
Aurora-
range-ish,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. If you're going for an Elise, definitely 45,000 will get you a really nice, really nice Elise or Exige, a really nice one. They're like very go-karty, manual steering, minimal sound dampening. Toyota engines, so they're pretty reliable. They're stout little cars, unless you crash them. But no, they're safe, but they have clamshells, so there's not really such a thing as a small accident. You have to replace like half the car. And the Evora, the bigger one, I recommend getting the S, the supercharged model, or the 400, which is the newer one. The non-supercharged one kind of sucks, but they sorted some stuff out a little later. The 400 I just had for a month was so fucking good. So fucking good.
But 911 Carrera is the one that you landed on without prompting.
Right now, I drive a lot of cars, and frankly, most cars I drive, I just think this should be more like a 911. And when I drive 911s, I go, everything should really just be more like this. And that's sort of where I'm at right now.